Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing this 2016 GMC Canyon. So this 2016 GMC Canyon is pretty much just a very well-rounded truck that can function both as a daily driver as well as like a full-on work truck. I mean, overall this truck basically has, the classic spirit of like an American workhorse, but a lot of modern day conveniences inside as well. So I know this specific truck actually is a 2016, but honestly, just looking at the paint looks pretty clear. All the like trim pieces, like the chrome trim pieces, stuff like that, look pretty well kept. And honestly, just like looking around, there's a couple like minor scratches and stuff like that, but overall this specific truck has been kept in a pretty decent condition. All right, so now the overall length of this truck is actually 224.6 inches. The width is 74.3 inches. The height is 70.5 inches, and it actually has a wheelbase of 140.5 inches. All right, guys, so as you can see, this Canyon is actually the SLT trim. So before I kind of get into the differences between the different trims, I did just want to briefly mention a few more measurements about this specific truck. So this specific truck has a towing capacity of 7,700 pounds even, and actually a maximum payload capacity right under 1,500 pounds at 1,430 pounds. Now these two statistics are pretty important, especially when looking at trucks. I mean, sometimes they kind of get overlooked, especially when you're like looking at cars or even SUVs. People tend to overlook those stats, but normally when someone buys a truck, they're probably going to use it for some type of work, some type of towing, kind of stuff like that. So honestly, in my opinion, some people might say like those numbers are like too low, whatever, but in my opinion, like I think that's plenty of, I guess, towing capabilities and payload capabilities for something that you can kind of use on a day-to-day basis. Now again, I'm not like super into trucks, so I don't really know if it's really too low. I honestly think that it's a decent amount. I think it's more than enough than the average person might use. All right, so now I'm just going to talk about the suspension really quick. So in this, the suspension there is obviously the kind of like the live rear axle, and the front does have kind of like just the two independent struts, kind of like you can say like the traditional American suspension setup. But I did just kind of want to move on to these wheels. So these wheels are actually 18-inch polished alloy wheels that are wrapped in all-season tires from factory. Now this truck actually does come with a spare tire that is mounted actually underneath it. I don't know if I can actually see it, but it does come with a spare tire that's mounted underneath. But that tire actually doesn't ratchet, so it's just like a regular donut. So basically, while I was doing research, obviously any towing stats or hauling stats, stuff like that, you don't want to test that out when it's, if you got a flat and you have to kind of like replace your tire on the go, like with the donut, you really don't want to push the truck's limit at that point. All right, guys, so these actual dimensions for these wheels, for all four wheels, are actually 18 inches by 8.5 inches, and underneath them you can kind of see pretty much like the standard, I guess, setup that you could consider for most modern vehicles. You kind of have the dual piston brake calipers in the front and the single piston brake calipers in the rear. Now I don't know exactly the actual rotor dimensions, the actual rotor sizes for this specific truck, but honestly, just eyeballing it, I'd say they're probably around 11 inches, maybe 12. All right, guys, so now we actually have the hood popped on this thing, and underneath the hood you can see the 3.6 liter naturally aspirated V6 double overhead cammed 4 valve per cylinder engine. Now this engine actually produces right over 300 horsepower, like right at 305 brake horsepower at 6,800 RPMs and 269 foot-pounds of torque at 4,000 RPMs. So definitely, just looking at those stats, I did just want to briefly mention one criticism for mainly just V6 trucks in general, not just this specific trucks, but just V6 trucks in general. A lot of people prefer the V8s compared to the V6s because the V8s just naturally have better torque curves than the V6s, which when you're towing things, when you're hauling things, kind of stuff like that, where you actually need kind of that initial power to get something else moving besides the truck itself, torque is actually a lot more important than horsepower, because horsepower is kind of like the top end speed, or I guess top end power you should say, whereas torque is like just kind of like that starting off, like that kind of power. So that is definitely one criticism that always comes up when anyone mentions V6 trucks in general. But I have to say that having a V6 does have its pros as well, and probably the main pro is gas mileage. So basically, when this engine is paired with the 6-speed shiftable automatic transmission and the kind of like all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive setup that it's on, it actually does get a pretty impressive, pretty decent 15 miles per gallon during city driving, 24 miles per gallon during highway driving, for a combined 20 miles per gallon. So basically you pair that with a 21 gallon fuel tank that this truck actually has. It has a very, very impressive range. On a full tank, it can go approximately 360 city miles or even 500 highway miles. So yes, that's kind of becoming the norm. I mean, we're seeing cars that have like even like into like the 30s and 40s with miles per gallon. But I need to, remind you guys that this is a truck that weighs 4,500 pounds. So that is actually, pretty impressive. Now, that being said, that would kind of explain the lower power numbers that we're actually seeing from this V6, because these engines are tuned down from factory to make those, MPG numbers. But, like I said before, the V6 trucks are definitely criticized a lot, but they do definitely have their pros, when it comes to fuel gas mileage. All right, guys, so I did just want to kind of film this. So I just came in, and basically, I guess it's as soon as you close the door, maybe, no? Oh, now it's not doing it again. But pretty much as soon as you get in, with this truck actually completely off, it basically like comes up like GMC and IntelliLink or something it says. But I just did kind of find that pretty cool. Now this, the owner is actually a firefighter, so he does have kind of his lights set up in the front grille and like some of the dashboard stuff. So obviously this stuff is not stock. I did just want to mention that. And yeah, just sitting in this, it's definitely very spacious. It's very wide. There's more than enough room. I do like this armrest. This armrest, I actually think it could be a little too high if you're shorter, but for me, like I'm 6 foot even, and it's very natural. Like this is kind of just like where my arm falls. And right off the bat, I do kind of see all the different options. Now this does have heated seats, which the owner loves. I'm not the biggest fan of heated seats, but again, if you're working and you're kind of doing like physical labor or whatever, I guarantee you that like heated seats probably like work wonders for someone's back or whatever. But yeah, without further ado, I'm basically just going to take this thing kind of like around the block, give you guys my initial reactions while driving it, and then that's pretty much just going to wrap up today's video. Alright guys, now I'm actually driving this truck, and probably the first thing I noticed when coming in, which I did find a little bit odd and well a little bit unique, I guess, is that this this transmission, it is a shiftable automatic transmission, but the actual like plus and minus buttons to shift this is actually on the side of the actual like stick to change it between, park, reverse, neutral, and drive. So you could go into a manual mode, but I don't think I would like it too much, so I'm just gonna like kind of just keep it in regular drive. But yeah, the first impressions I have when driving this car is that it doesn't feel like you're driving a truck. Now, like, yes, you're very lifted off the ground, and yes, you do have a longer wheelbase and stuff like that, but the thing is, like, it drives, like, the handling is very, very smooth. So honestly, another thing too while driving this, it is very another, I guess, comfort feature you could say is that it's very, very quiet. Now, some people, they like to put exhaust on trucks, stuff like that. But this truck is pretty much completely stock, except for like the two kind of little like runners that the owner actually drilled in underneath it just to, you know, help get in and out of the truck. But again, mechanically, like, everything is pretty much exactly how it came, you know, from the factory. So everything is super quiet in here. There's barely any cabin noise. And the owner actually also kind of put in these like little weather guards in both windows. Now, we actually put them in on my family's SUV, the Pathfinder. If you didn't see that review, I'll leave a link to it up in the top of the video. But we actually installed weather guards in it, and it makes a lot of difference when the window's actually down, and you can actually ride with the window kind of cracked or down, even if it's like raining. So again, this truck's kind of all about comfort. It's not a, you know, kind of designated work truck that, like, you know, it's not like a landscaping truck or anything like that that's like designated to a business that's using it solely for work. This is the owner's kind of daily driver. So obviously he wants, you know, comfort to be like a main factor with this truck. So, and with it being a V6 as well, yes, it's not going to get as good of gas mileage as a 4-cylinder would, and it's not going to have as much power as a V8, but you kind of get the best of both worlds. Now, I'm giving it a little gas right now, and it definitely accelerates very well. I mean, you can hear the shift point. You can, as soon as you step on it, there's probably around like a half-second delay, but it is fairly responsive, especially for an automatic vehicle. Normally, automatic vehicles, like, you step on it and it almost, and some of them it takes like almost like a full second to actually downshift and then, you know, kind of get up to speed and get in that power band. Now, this truck actually has just under 42,000 miles on it. It's right at 41,170 miles on it right now. So it definitely has seen, I guess, a little bit of wear, but honestly, you couldn't tell it. Like, before I actually looked down and actually saw the actual mileage of this truck, if you were to make me guess, I would maybe probably say, like, you know, 20 to 25,000 miles, if that. I mean, it does feel very, very new. Now, yes, it's not like completely proven itself. It's not like in like the 6 digits yet or anything like that, but it does have a decent amount of mileage where you can kind of tell that this truck is definitely going to last long. All right, guys, it's pretty much just going to wrap up today's video. Let me know if this was informative, if you guys are specifically looking for this truck. Let me know, you know, just your comments down below, whether positive, negative. Let me know what I can do better in the future. But yeah, until the next one, I'll see you guys. Thank you for the support. Definitely be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below.